Well, good afternoon. So I want to start off with a story that was kind of fun for me. I was just on the back end of a 6 month deployment with the Navy. And, if you know about going out to sea for 6 months with a lot of your brothers and sisters, after a while, you realize that, um, you're looking for some downtime and you're looking to have some time where you could just relax. Some of us play cards. Well, over the last 5.5 months, they figured out I was Italian, and so they said, "Hey, Mister Bill, could you make some Italian dinner before we go into port? I've been away for 6 months, and I just like some good Italian food." So we pulled in. One of the things when you come from the Persian Gulf and you head to San Diego, where we were home ported, you stop off in Hawaii. So I agreed after a lot of persistence. I agreed I was going to make lasagna for 180 people, and I think I made like 16 sheets of lasagna. Um, but here was the kicker. This was kind of the funny story. The funny part was I had to get ingredients, and I have never in my entire life made 16 trays of lasagna. So I don't know. It was like 35 pounds of ground beef. But I get to the cheese and I'm putting the order in for, one of the supply guys to go, and I'm putting the cheese, and I put well, what do you get for lasagna? If you're Italian, you get regatta cheese. So I put regatta cheese and I send it up to chain of command, and the supply officer says, "No, Paul, we can't do that." I says, "What do you mean you can't do that?" He says, "Oh, we only could do cottage cheese because that's what's in the stock system." I said, I am not making lasagna for 180 guys because that's all they're going to talk about is you put cottage cheese in that. Like my name would be defaced, and so the master chief says you need to call the supply officer if you want regatta cheese. So anyway, with enough push and shove, I helped the supply officer, luckily over the 5.5 months, get things that he couldn't normally get. He says, "All right, Paul, I'll take care of you." So I ended up making 16 or 17 trays of lasagna with regatta cheese. I was happy. And the last part of it is we have what's called midrats, which is midnight rations, which is that's food for folks when they're on the midnight watch, so they can go through the galley and get a little bite to eat when they go stand watch. And a bunch of them said, "Mr. Bill, there's no lasagna left." So it was that good. Usually there's some food left for midnight rations. So I think there was like a half a tray left. And so I heard it for the rest of the 2 weeks before we pulled into San Diego. You need to make more next time. So it was kind of fun. But when I had to call the supply officer, says, "I'm demanding regatta cheese," it was like, are we really fighting a war here?
Yeah, you could have given up your whole Italian legend, if you gave cottage cheese. They would not know.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
as an Italian, I can totally appreciate that.
I see you nodding and laughing. Yeah.
well,
Cottage
hello, this is
cheese.
Don,
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
and this is podcast number 194. And today we're luckily talking to Paul Bill, the community engagement manager with Veterans Bridge Home. Paul is on his third tour with Veterans Home Bridge Home. This tour as community engagement manager. Previous tours, he assisted as veteran career education and transitional employment. He is 30-year retired Navy surface warfare officer commander, serving on numerous naval vessels, deploying in support both for Persian Gulf, Persian Gulf Wars and global war on terrorism. Through his Navy career and after his retirement in 2012, Paul continued to work to help close the gap between transitioning veterans and the job placement. Paul is an experienced veteran educator and motivational coach with a passion to help veterans on transition. He lives in TKK with his wife Susan, who's a dementia care navigator for Magnolia Memorial Care, and has been married for 33 years, has two daughters, and now has three grandchildren with one on the way. So we're going to stop there. We'll put the rest of that on the description, but there's so much to it. You have such a wonderful career that we can't put it all on this time. So anyway, thank you for being here, Bill. We really
Yeah,
appreciate it, Paul.
you're welcome.
So what I'd like to talk about first is just give them a general idea of what Veterans Bridge Home is all about.
Yeah. So we started 15 years ago. We're probably about 60% footprint in North Carolina and maybe about 20% in South Carolina. We have partnerships in other states like California, Texas, and Virginia, where we have a large veteran population. But physically, we're mostly in the Carolinas. Um, and we probably have two arms that's the best way to serve. One is when veterans leave their base, they leave their position from a base installation or their unit, and they leave their buddies, their brothers and sisters. They leave the job that they've had, and they've left the resources. We call them like medical and all the benefits that you get in the military. Well, as soon as you get out, a lot of that gets stripped, and you got to find your new identity. So Veterans Bridge Home helps the veteran find their identity. The second biggest arm is just getting them connected. Because a lot of times a veteran will think they can handle it because we're pretty prideful, and we'll try to figure it out on our own. And many times when you leave, a base out of San Diego or Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, and you move to a city, it's like a different language. It's civilian language, and you really have to kind of transition that. So, but you come in alone a lot of times if you're new to the area. So the second piece is we just get connected. So we have a lot of coffees, lots of lunches, a lot of happy hours. We connect with community folks that are already doing this stuff, that are already having coffees for veterans or lunches for veterans, and we just want to get them connected. And the bottom line is an isolated veteran is a veteran in warning. And not mourning, but warning with a W. So these are challenging times where they just need to get connected. So that's what Veterans Bridge Home does.
When you mentioned warning, tell me a little bit more about that. What is that? What does that mean?
Well, you get a veteran that doesn't have any friends, doesn't have a social network, they're new to a
Mm.
city, and there's a warning sign that says, look, they miss all that stuff that I just shared earlier, right? They miss their mission, which is their job, and we help them get there connected. And you know, we the alarming statistic is the suicide rate for veterans are twice that of civilian rate, and there's a reason behind that. And we feel at Veterans Bridge Home, a lot of that has to do with just being connected. And if you're connected, if you got a social capital, that people help each other out, and the warning signs will be visible. And usually, a veteran likes to talk to another veteran, and they'll work
Mm-hmm.
through another veteran. If you see a civilian and they're going, "Ah, yeah, you'll be fine," they really don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, just quick stat: anyone who's ever served in the United States military, it's less than 7% of the population. So you get 100 people in the room and only seven know what you're talking about. They know what you've been through. Now, I know there's firefighters and policemen that have some appreciation, but military service, less than 7%.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I realize. I mean, I know there's a homeless population issue with veterans. We live up in Salisbury now, and with the VA up here, I've heard the issues with that, and yeah, I can only imagine that transitional period is really difficult for them.
I guess go a little bit further in the transition. When, well, I guess you try to get them right out of the what do you call it?
Yeah,
Deploy
the service,
out of
out of the
service.
service. Yeah, that's a great question because if you go to our mission vision, you'll see the word transition,
Hmm.
and transition means a lot of things. I've
Mm-hmm.
transitioned 7 times, right? Uh, a move, several new jobs, new family member, maybe your role from a parent to a grandparent. But as a veteran, there's a lot of different transitions that happen. So, what do we try to do? Well, yeah, we do have a footprint on a lot of military bases that they know they can transition out. But when you're getting out, when you're active duty and you're working the mission and you're right involved, these things that come at you. Hey, there's Veterans Bridge Home. We're here to help. You don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And so you don't ask good questions until you're out, until you stumble. And we just want to be there when you stumble. We want to be there whether it's a breakfast or lunch. So yeah, we do try to get it. But then, we have seen so many times where there are veterans that have served, Vietnam, Korea War. I mean, all the way back to obviously the newer wars, the global war on terrorism and all that. So we got young guys in their 30s and 40s, and they're still trying to figure out their identity. Guess what?
Mhm.
They're in transition.
Mm.
And it's not just job, but we help them find homes too. I mean, home ownership's a big deal, right? Well, that's a difficult task in the military. My wife and I, you said we've been married 33 years. In the 20 years we were married in military service, we moved 15 times.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
15 times. My kids don't know what the same high school is like. I mean, so I get 100 people in the room. 93 don't know what it's like to move
Mhm.
that many times.
Yeah, and 2 years doesn't give you much
And
leeway on the house
no,
either.
no. I mean, my wife and I, we are so good at this. Like, we could be at a church for like 3 weeks and people think we've been there for 3 years. Like, we get to know our resources, our heads on a swivel. We're like, who are these people? What are they doing? Because we got no time. We're not. So, that changes people when you move.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
and that's a transition.
What other services does Veterans Bridge, offer? You mentioned some things already.
Yeah. So, I think we got about 23 or 24 on the list, but the top three are home ownership, or
Mhm.
or just helping them housing. We'll just do housing, employment, and then mental health. And mental health takes a lot of different derivatives. But we'll help people with their utility bills. We'll help people food assistance, education. So we got connections with the university. So we'll help you, your Montgomery GI Bill, or if you got some tuition assistance kind of thing through the government, we'll help you navigate that. Um, if you're looking for well, you're just looking for social connections. You're looking for a gym you're looking for a business that's veteran friendly. We try to make a point to understand the community and know what veteran friendly organizations and community members are out there. So, and I will add that if you came into our office and you said, here's an example, I need a working dog. Some military, you'll see them, right? They're not called working dogs, but they're like for the blind, and
Service dogs,
yeah,
yeah.
the
Oh, okay.
service dogs. Yeah, they got the service dogs for PTSD.
Hmm.
We do not have dogs here. What we do here at Veterans Bridge Home is we leverage our relationships with partnerships that do have these services. So we have a minimal amount of services. I mean, employment's a good example. We leverage our relationships with the Wells Fargos, the Duke Energies, and Atrium Health, and Novant Health, and Accenture, and all these employers, so that we can help them understand what it's like to hire a veteran, how to hire a veteran, how to retain them. So when we get a veteran walking in the door and says, "I need a job," we got relationships. As a matter of fact, the HR talent acquisition really like VBH because we do initial vettings. So
Mm.
Mm.
they come to us and they go, "Paul, you got anybody? You got anybody that in cybersecurity? Some defense companies that need clearances." So all that to say, we leverage what we do with partnerships. So I just want to make it clear that we can't do all this stuff. Utility payments, we don't have like a whole cash bar, cash box. We leverage, down in Rock Hill, there's a place called Pathways,
Mhm.
pathways or pathfinders, but down in there they have a bunch of nonprofits that'll help us with utility, so we can reach out to them if you're in York County, as an example.
So, are you mainly getting younger veterans? What do you do anything with older veterans?
Yeah, we do a lot with older veterans. Matter of fact, probably 55 to 60% of our population are older veterans, which would be 55 and older.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does
so we have a whole partnership with companies that'll help them with Medicare and
Okay.
long-term disability. Um, I told you my wife works in Alzheimer dementia, but we have partnerships with senior care facilities that'll help you, get you someone if you need someone just at your home for a couple hours a week,
Hmm.
help you take your medicine, all the way to 24/7 care. And then ones that VA will pay. And something that's interesting that I've monitored over the years, although I was never at age that I needed something like that, but the VA has really stepped up their game on caregivers and financially supporting folks that are actually caregiving on what you two probably know by ADA, right?
Hmm.
Average. Did I say that right? Is it?
Yeah. American Disabilities Act.
Well, no, but
Oh,
your average. Oh, AL. Your average. Your live.
ADL.
Yeah,
activities
ADL.
of daily
She knows.
living. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm an
activity.
She knows
occupational
that.
therapist. Yes, I know exactly
Yes,
what you're talking
activity of
about.
daily living. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So the VA has financial support for that. So VBH is into the seasoned senior veterans too, and definitely. And you think about it, these younger veterans don't really need anything. So why should they come to VBH, right? They don't think they need anything. Even social enrichment, they're not necessarily need anything. The thing that we see a lot of the younger veterans that have gotten out is VA claims. We've
Okay.
helped them with their disability claims, like Paul or VBH. Walk me through a claim.
Mm.
And you hear a lot about, claims because they've been through war and back, or they've had some arduous duty. And if they've injured themselves, or if they've had some, what they call, um, basically an injury while you're on active duty, then you could submit a claim for that. And
Hmm.
that's what we see a lot of the younger generation doing.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine
One,
that's.
we ran it. We run into a couple, more than a couple of people that didn't realize what the veterans offer. Like you said, that they're stepping up their ability, and that's one thing I'd like to get out there and let people know that there are those kind of options out there for people to step into. Um,
Yeah,
to
and if I spoke from experience, someone who had to keep hearing it and having a mentor or a coach saying, "Oh, you should go check the VA out or put in a claim and all that," um, it's not that difficult, and that's what VBH does. But there's other organizations that'll help you walk through it. Like every county has a VSO, which is a Veteran Service Office,
Mm-hmm.
and they will help you walk you through. So, folks listen to this. I bet some folks are listening to this podcast thinking that filing a claim is like going to the DMV on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And you're walking in with all these other people that got DUIs and they got their license revoked, and that's all you want to do is change your license plate, or that you just want to get like, a veteran label on your license plate. The VA has gotten a lot better. There's a lot of things you can do electronically. You can have your
Hmm.
own portal that can show you where the claim is and communicate with your claim processor and even your doctors. That you go to the VA hospital and you use that service. There are a lot of tools that have gotten better over the years. And I've been, you said 30 years I was in, and I've been out for about another 10. So I've been in and out of this stuff and watching, the evolution for 40 years.
Hmm. That's good to hear because if someone's trying to get regular disability outside the military, we know some people that have gone through that, and it is a very long, slow process. So it's, and I hear, applying for disability support. I think about that. So it's good to know the veterans are the VA as better
Yeah.
equipped with their ability to manage that. I work in geriatric care as an occupational therapist, and whenever I find out someone's a veteran, I'm like, oh, you can get all kinds of benefits. It'll pay for things that, regular Medicare won't pay for. You can get ramps built, you can get different ADL equipment and things. And so, yeah. But people don't always know. And like caregivers, I do have a veteran where I work, and they have, caregiver coming in to assist. That's all paid for through the VA. So getting that information out to people, I think, is so important.
Yeah, and that's what we do at that social in those social enrichment connections, those breakfast, lunch, and happy hours. I mean, we have community leads or our else self staff that
Okay.
we share info. So we
Yeah.
try to best we can.
Yeah, I was wondering what other community outreach you mentioned the lunches and things that you do as far as finding those veterans. Are there other avenues you take to
Yeah.
reach out?
Yeah. So two really big ones that we know veterans and military people like: sports and exercise.
Okay.
So we partner with, locally in the area, we partner with the Panthers, the Hornets, the Knights, the Checkers, the football, the soccer club. All of them are connected with us. And, we just got done with what we call prom season for veterans. All right. So, Veterans Day was November 11th.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
if you're a veteran organization, it's prom season because every week we got something. Someone's asking us to come to the school and do this or that. Well, all those sports teams I just told you had, military appreciation night. The Hornets had hoops for troops. Charlotte Knights do their thing. Although they do it in July, but yeah, everyone had. The Checkers had seats for soldiers where they put, they had 8 seats that they gave the all that to say, this is an opportunity. And guess what we do as like at the Hornets, as an example, a couple of weeks ago when they did hoops for troops, we set up a table. And
Hmm.
guess who else was there? VA Salisbury. VA Salisbury was there, and you could in fact submit a claim and get it started at a basketball game.
Wow.
Yeah, right there. And it was Military Appreciation Night, and they gave VBH a kind of a special link to send to our people, so they got a discount on tickets. But those are a couple things. On the exercise, we do a lot of partnerships. We have our own Wednesday workouts. If you're familiar with F3, it's kind of similar run. That's Faith Fathers and Fitness. And so
Okay.
it's been going around a long time. You could see it. They usually have Facebook pages, but they work out all over the communities. So we leverage that because next thing you know, whether it's at a sports event or an exercise, you're running along with somebody and then you get done, or you're doing some, 8 count bodybuilders and whatever, and you're finishing your gym workout. And it's usually heading back to the car and you're going, hey, how's things going? Yeah, okay. Oh, what do you mean, okay? Now, these are two veterans talking, and before you know it, they're sharing. And that's where the next step is to get them connected. So when I told you those two arms, get them connected, just having them so they can talk and say, I got a problem, or at least, say I got an issue, and then connecting them to services through our providers. And for that, every veteran we can have raise their hand and say, I need, and get them connected with a service, as one veteran helped across the whole spectrum, whether you're not too many World War II vets left.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Very small number.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
all the way up today.
I'd imagine the mental health services are a challenge as far as getting people to get the help that they need. And do you have connections with mental health professionals who are themselves veterans? Because I imagine that would be a great benefit for those people.
Yeah, so we leverage the mental health profession to help us out. They're not all veterans. We
Hmm.
have 2 or 3 folks that work for Veterans Bridge Home that has a master's in social work, so they have a little bit. So we do a little bit initial triage, and when it starts, going into the therapy mode, we get them to the right folks. The VA started a program a few years ago. It was from a young sergeant who committed suicide, and it's called the Sergeant Fox Grant. Anyway, the local Mecklenburg County and the VA have given us some money to work on this Sergeant Fox grant. But one of the things the grant provides is mental health professionals. If you get screened with some alarming answers, every veteran that go as an example, and I'm not going to tell you the ones, but every veteran that goes to the VA hospital, typically when your doctor takes your blood pressure and your temperature, the very next thing is they ask you those three or four questions, and they're called the
Hmm.
Columbia Suicide Questionnaire. And I say that because if you answer or if you screen in some conversation with our social workers, our care coordination center, we will put you in what they call a Sergeant Fox program, and that puts you in a counselor, qualified therapist, and it walks you through and gets you off the windowsill and off the ledge and walk you through. And so it's our way of reducing that number of twice the amount of civilian. And you know, it's it's an alarming statistic, and you kind of
Hmm.
scratch your head why. Some veterans just kind of get out and they produce and they're productive, like a lot of people like myself. And then there's other ones that were called to do certain things. And there's a thing out there called, and I just saw it about a year ago. It's called moral injury,
Hmm.
and it's real. It's called moral injury. See, because you file a claim and they're looking for a broken arm, they're looking
Hmm.
for a sore knee, they're looking for hearing issues, they're looking
Hmm.
for eye issues. Moral injury is when your moral compass was jeopardized in something that you've seen, heard, or witnessed. And that is just something, and I've just been on this kind of I've been on this charter to talk a little bit more about. You might think you're okay,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and maybe you don't call it PTSD or you don't have traumatic brain injury, but you ever hear of moral injury? And you see that a lot in war, and that's just something that you just can't put a name to it. You see a lady with a baby walking in a crowd of people, and all of a sudden she blows up because the backpack was an explosive, and your brain says that's not right. Like I that's not and
Hmm.
we saw it a lot in Iraq and Afghanistan, things
Sure.
like that, and that's called moral injury. And so anyway, we try to get veterans assistance on that so they could talk about it and maybe put a name to it, right? Don't therapists say if you name it, you can contain it?
Sure.
That's
And I
true.
like that they call it moral injury, it's a real thing. A lot of times people have difficulty identifying with a mental health issue that affects them, unlike, an amputated leg or something that's more obvious, that it is a real thing. How we process things in our brain, our brain is part of our body. And so if we're struggling with those things, um,
Well, and I would think too, like you said, that sometimes veterans get out and they think they know what they're doing, so they think that they let the mental side of it kind of go by because they can get past it on their own. I don't know if that's kind of a normal way of
Oh
them
my
thinking.
gosh. I heard something the other day and I love it. And it's exactly what you're talking about. They said most people do two things with feelings: stew or stow. So
Okay.
they stew over it or they stow it. And it comes back later in a different way. Okay, so it's not rocket science, it's therapist 101. You either stew over it or you stow it. Well, this is what I'll tell you, being a military guy, you are not to show emotions.
Hmm.
mhm,
There are commands you got to give your men that you can't show emotions. So you stuff them and you stow them and you stow them. Emotions are not a place that you address. You're up for a new assignment. And they call them a detailer that assigns you to a new. They don't go, "Hey Don, where would you like to go?" Like, just tell me what would make sense. How's your quality of life? What would be good for your family? Nothing. They say, "What are the needs of the Navy?" You're going to here. This is where you're going. We need somebody here with your expertise, and they send you. And so for so long, and I'll call it institutionalized. So if you see someone with 4 years as a military veteran and you're going, well, he seems or she seems okay. 4 years isn't a long time to be institutionalized. Now, I don't want people on the podcast to think, oh, hey, I've been 4 years and I've been affected. I'm not
mhm,
saying that. What I'm saying is the more you're institutionalized, you want me to relate it to something? The more you're in prison, the more you spent time in prison, 20 years in prison, why do the people always go back? They commit a crime and they go back because they've been institutionalized and they don't know what it's like to be on the outside world.
Hmm.
mhm,
Military folks are not too far removed from being
mhm,
institutionalized and being structured. And then you release them to the civilian world and you say, go. You give them a few little resources, but you say, go. And they're prideful. We're prideful. We did it. We flew F-18s. We drove ships. I mean, I got this. You're right, Don. We put emotions off to the side and we go, and I got this. I'm good. I'm good. You know, we're like your teenage daughter that says, how was your day? Fine. Don, I'm fine.
I hate that word.
I know. I
There's
had
more behind that. Yes.
I had two of them. So, I can't wait for a veteran to tell me he's fine. because that opens up the door for me. And I said, but I can do that as a veteran. And that's what we want to do. We want to encourage a lot of these events we do to have other veterans there so they can talk. Or,
Okay.
if you're exercising or, I'll mention one other place that we do it. We have park cleanups.
Okay.
We do park cleanups. They're not all military cemeteries, but we'll do cemeteries and parks. And what that allows us to do is we bring employers. There's a lot of employers that have veterans that work for them that need to
Mm-hmm.
have this like community outreach time, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
couple times a year. So they'll call Veterans Bridge Home because they got a veteran affinity group, right? Like Hispanic, African American. They got a veteran resource group, and the veterans want to do something and give back to community. So they'll call us. And what we do is we take those folks that might work for Wells Fargo, we send them to a park to help clean up. At the same time, we take 10 veterans that are in transition to look for jobs, particularly looking for financial jobs. Maybe Bank of America and Wells Fargo's on their list. And we bring them together. And guess what? It's not an interview. You're just shoveling, mulch, and you're raking wood chips, and you're trimming tree branches. And the next thing you know, you're going, hey, oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm in job transition. Really? Well, I'm an HR person for Wells Fargo. And there is a happy dance.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. Well, we at least do it intentionally once a month, but we encourage any of those opportunities with that organizations are doing something like that where they have employees that are veterans that already work for a company and get them to connect with veterans in transition.
That's great. That's a great connecting opportunity. It could be less intimidating, I imagine, for some
Less
people.
intimidating, yeah, low risk, less intimidating. And that's how we open up sometimes. You're not going to get someone going, I got a problem. We do. But you know when that is? When they really got a problem.
Hmm.
When it's almost too late sometimes,
Well, yeah. Well, they always say, when do married couples go to counseling? When they can't figure it out themselves, when they're stuck.
Hmm.
A lot of people walk in our door when they're stuck. And we're trying to encourage them to do it before they get stuck and just have that network. So when you do need it, I know where to go.
I was looking on your website and I see you have kind of branches throughout the Carolinas, in
Yep.
different, so you have physical locations that people can literally just walk into, Monday through Friday.
No, we only have
Okay.
that in Charlotte,
Okay.
but
You have
but
one
we
of
have
those in
a yeah
Charlotte.
we have a contact. We're looking to build some like brick and mortar, but we're a nonprofit, and that always takes a little bit. Those other areas are probably 3 or 4 years old. We've been here at
Okay.
Charlotte area 15 years, so
Okay.
um, uh, make sure that's correct. But all the information, the connection, and everyone working virtual, and they'll happy to meet physically somewhere, but there is not a building address for those other op areas.
Okay. But you do
Great
have one there,
question.
and you have one there in Charlotte, though,
Yeah,
that,
we're right near the airport
okay.
and the
now
VA hospital. Go figure.
Yeah.
do the ones that you said you had some in California and Texas, do they have locations too, or
Yeah, so yeah, those have locations, but they're not VBH. They're just partners of ours that
right?
do similar things.
Okay.
Oh,
That
okay.
do similar things that help veterans. So, they're just different organizations. But if you reached out to VBH and you said, "Hey, I'm in Texas or I'm moving to Texas," we could probably find you a resource that's similar to ours that help you get connected. But it's all
Sure.
on a different, a lot of our grants and funding are all in the Carolinas. So you won't find a Veterans Bridge Home in Texas, but partners.
Sure.
Well,
What other things would you like to share with our listeners, as far as the services that Veterans Bridge Home does?
Well, I think everyone's can look on the website. We're typical. Remember a nonprofit, so it's a .org, www.veteransbridgehome.org. Veterans is plural, but Bridge Home or singular. So you can look at what we do and the services we offer. I think if I had a minute, I would really, the time I'd wanted to share is just to encourage folks that listen to the podcast to say, whether it's Veterans Bridge Home or some other service, ask. Most likely there's somebody that's gone through it before, and they're there to help. And I always swap it. I always say, if someone was in your position where you needed something and they knocked on your door, and let's say you're fine, and they knocked on your door and they said, "Hey, Paul, would you mind helping me with this?" I bet you would be first to respond and you'd be okay to help. So I just want to encourage people that hear the podcast, just go out and knock the door because we all want to help each other and we need more of that. The second thing I think was just be aware because that's probably the hardest thing, which is I think I read it up in the DC subway years ago. It says see something, say something.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And many times when you see something, particularly maybe at the senior, when the folks that get older and you're not sure, you feel uncomfortable, right? It's sort of like that person that is coming through with a wheelchair and you're not sure whether to open the door or not, and they open the door, you open the door for them, and maybe they get a little aggravated at you because you open the door and they like, I could do it myself, right? We've seen these people. I bet you have,
Hmm.
with the OT background. But I want to encourage everyone. You got to open the door anyway.
Yeah.
You got to open the door anyway. I mean, we just got to take care of each other, and don't take those kind of things personally. Not everyone's going to take your advice or you take your encouragement, but somewhere Mother Teresa has a poem that says, "Do it anyway." And people are going to be, when you're kind, they're going to be unkind to you, but be kind anyway. And so that's really the point I would like to share.
We'll just make sure to give them a veteran's lasagna, and they'll be happy.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I think the other cringe is turkey and a meatball. I make my homemade meatballs, and
Oh,
Okay.
well.
I'm not crazy about putting turkey in it, but it's all right. That I'll buy.
Can you make it for what? Well, how many did you make it for? 800?
About 180.
180.
180? Yeah. So if you make it for that much,
That's that's a lot of lasagna.
Yeah, well, it sure was. I mean, and you got the big. I don't know. People can't see this on the podcast, but those big spoons and the big vats.
Sure,
You're stirring
to
ground
mix
beef,
it
and I'm
up.
like, I got 3 hours before these things brown. This stuff browns. Uh,
It's got to be, yeah, tedious. I'm Italian background, and in fact, our oldest child, our son, that's he loves is lasagna, and for his birthday, he often gets one that we enjoy as a family, and then his gift is a lasagna
right.
because
Yes, I've seen that with desserts for people. They're like, take one home.
well,
Yeah.
they will see you do this because we do it on video too. So
yeah,
you'll see, you'll
this
get to see that
podcast
too.
is on YouTube as well
Oh, great. Oh,
as
great.
audio versions of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well,
yeah,
you can't not put a little YouTube on with an Italian because we speak with our hands. So no, no, this will be
uh,
a great opportunity.
well, Paul, they really want to thank you for this. We hope to get this out, get people just to recognize what there is for veterans out there, and be able to get them to a place like yourself to get that connection, like you talked about. So
Yeah,
thank you very much for being part of this.
yeah, because I
yeah,
imagine our listeners, those that aren't veterans, probably know a veteran, a family
that's
member,
exactly right.
a friend or something, so that they can share that information with them.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. And for the shout out to the folks that are in Mecklenburg County. If you go to our
mhm.
website, you'll see we're doing a Mecklenburg County's doing a survey. They haven't done one since 2012 to
Okay.
find out how are we doing on veterans? How are we helping them? Uh, I got the card here. It looks something like that, but online you
Okay.
could do it. Mecklenburg County Survey. Um, I'm at pbill at veteransbridgehome.org. That's my email. So if you
Okay.
listen to this podcast and you're saying, hey, Paul, I'd love to connect with you, pbill at veteransbridgehome.org. Don, you have my email stuff. However you want to put
Yeah,
out, I'm happy
we'll
to.
put it out there too.
Yeah,
So it'll be
super.
on the yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
great opportunity.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Paul. That is our podcast. We'd love to hear from you as our listeners. Make sure to leave us a comment, give us feedback, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to a podcast. And if you've liked what you've heard today, please check out our website, focusedhealthyfamily.com. Check out all of our other podcasts that we have done, a number of different interviews on people of a variety of topics, both caring for seniors, caring for children, family issues in general. You can find all of this at focusedhealthyfamily.com. We're on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, Instagram, Focused Healthy Family One. And again, this is on YouTube at Focused Healthy Family, as well as anywhere you listen to your podcast. We air our podcast every Thursday. And Join us for our next one next week. And one more shout out here. Don is going to be speaking at Lavender Hills Memory Care in Fort Mill on December 9th. He's going to be doing 2 talks related to caring for those with dementia as well as dementia residents. So at Lavender Hills, Fort Mill Memory Care, December 9th at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. He's going to be doing a talk. You can learn more about that on the website at Focused Healthy Family. It's an event that's open to the public. You can find it on Facebook as well. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.